The Windseeker moved slowly through the black space around a nameless moon. The crew had been traveling for many days, scanning empty rocks and cold worlds. Most of them were tired and ready to return to the central station. But then the sensors picked up something strange on the surface of the moon. It was not a mountain or a crater. It was a shape that looked too perfect to be made by nature. From the viewing deck, the crew could see it. A large pattern stretched across the flat ground. It shone with a soft light, not bright enough to hurt the eyes, but steady like a heartbeat. The pattern looked like many circles and lines woven together. It seemed to pulse slowly, as if it were alive. No one knew what it was. The ship's captain, a tall alien named Varen, looked uneasy. He told the crew that other ships had seen this. Same place in the past. They had scanned it from far away, but never landed. Every time someone tried to get close, strange signals filled their systems, and they turned back. The place had earned a name among the travelers. They called it the tomb that even time forgot. Most of the crew did not want to approach. They said the place felt wrong. But there was one human aboard named Rene. He stood quietly at the edge of the deck, watching the pattern. There was something in his eyes that none of the others could read. He did not feel fear. He felt something else. It was as if the pattern was calling to him. Raimai had grown up on a distant colony world where humans still explored on foot, searching for ruins of old settlements. As a boy, he had often wandered into empty places and felt a strange sense of connection. Now that same feeling returned, only stronger. He told Varen they should land and see what was there. Varen shook his head, thought. It was not until the ship's main scanner began to act strangely that the captain considered it. The scan showed energy readings far older than the moon itself. It made no sense. Varen decided they would take a small landing craft. He warned the crew that they would leave quickly if anything went wrong. The landing craft broke away from the wind seeker and dropped into the moon's thin atmosphere. The ground below looked flat and empty except for the glowing pattern. As they came closer, Ramai noticed that the lines of the pattern were carved deep into the stone surface. The glow seemed to rise from within, not from sunlight or any lamp. They landed on a ridge near the edge of the pattern. The ground was silent under their boots. The air was cold and still. The crew moved slowly, scanning the area. Remy walked ahead, drawn to the center. The closer he came, the more he could feel a soft vibration in the ground under his feet. It was like a quiet song, too low for the ears, but strong enough for the body to feel. The others stopped near the edge of a wide canyon that cut across the pattern. At the far side of the canyon was something even more unexpected. A wall of black stone rose from the ground. It was smooth and straight, with no cracks or marks. At the center of the wall stood a huge door, taller than any building Rama had ever seen. The door had no handles or hinges. It looked like a single piece of stone, yet it gave the feeling that it could open at any moment. The surface shimmered faintly, as if a thin layer of light moved across it. Ramai stepped forward. The alien crew members called out for him to stop, but he kept walking until he stood before the door. When his hand touched the surface, the cold stone felt warm, almost like skin. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the ground trembled softly. The shimmer on the door grew brighter. Without a sound, the door began to part down the middle. It slid open so smoothly that it seemed the stone itself was turning into air. A wave of warm wind rushed out, carrying a faint scent that no one could name. It was not dust or rot. It was something clean, almost sweet, as if it had been waiting a long time to be released. The wind curled around Rame and then faded. The opening stood before them, leading into darkness that glowed faintly gold. Varen ordered everyone to fall back, but Ramai stepped inside. The floor beneath him was smooth and slightly warm, like the door. The golden glow came from the walls. Yet there were no lamps or torches. The light simply existed, soft and steady. Behind him, the others hesitated. They whispered in their own languages, debating whether to follow. Ramai turned back and told them the air was safe. One by one, they entered the tomb. The opening closed silently behind them, leaving no mark of how they had come in. For a moment, they all stood still, listening to the silence. The passage ahead was long and straight, with strange markings on the walls. At first, the markings looked like lines and shapes, but when Ramai looked closer, they seemed to move. Not fast or sudden, but like clouds drifting across the sky. He could not read them, yet somehow they felt familiar. The alien crew members shifted uncomfortably. One said the markings made their head ache. Another claimed they could hear whispers in the walls. Ramai heard nothing but the sound of his own breathing. It was as if the place knew who he was and allowed him to walk freely far ahead. The corridor seemed to stretch without end, but Ramai did not feel lost. Something deep inside told him that they were moving toward the heart of the tomb. Every step seemed to echo softly, not just in sound, but in feeling. The air was warmer now, almost pleasant, yet none of the crew removed their suits. Ramai began to sense that this place had been built not by a single people, but by many, each adding to it over uncounted ages. The walls seemed to hold stories, each layer older than the last. Somewhere deep ahead, the answers waited, and the tomb itself seemed to breathe. The golden light along the walls seemed to grow warmer as Ramai and the crew walked deeper into the tomb. The air stayed still and quiet, without a single sound of dripping water or shifting stone. It felt as if the place had been waiting for someone to come for a very long time. The corridor did not bend or curve. It ran perfectly straight, as if it had been drawn with a ruler across the heart of the moon. Varen moved carefully, his wide eyes scanning every shadow. His kind was skilled at reading places of danger, yet even he could not read this one. Every step they took only deepened the mystery. The alien crew members spoke softly to one another in their own languages. Ramai stayed silent, his eyes locked. Forward, after what felt like hours, the corridor opened into a wide chamber. The ceiling arched high above, so far that the golden light only touched part of it. In the center of the chamber stood another door. It was much smaller than the outer one, but still taller than any person. Its frame was carved from a single piece of black stone. The surface was covered in faint patterns that looked like they had been etched by water and wind over countless ages. This door was not like the first. It did not shimmer. It did not breathe. It stood still and silent, yet it gave off a feeling of great age. Ramai stepped closer and felt the air grow heavier. He reached out, but before his hand could touch it, something made him stop. It was not fear. It was the sense that the door was watching him. Viren ordered the scanners to be used. They aimed beams of light at the surface, but every signal bounced back without giving any reading. It was as if the door was not there at all. The crew tried to record its image, but the recording devices showed only a blank wall. Even the golden glow of the chamber did not seem to exist on the screens. One of the alien crew members suggested leaving. He said the place was beyond them, that no one had ever passed such a barrier. But Ramai kept looking at the patterns on the stone. The more he stared, the more the patterns seemed to shift, just like the markings in the corridor. He felt as if they were speaking to him in a silent voice. The others grew restless. They stepped back toward the corridor, but Ramai stayed. His hand moved to the center of the door, slow and careful. When his fingers touched the cold stone, the air in the chamber trembled. The patterns lit up with a soft silver light, and the heaviness in the air lifted. The door did not open like the first. Instead, it melted away without a sound, turning into a mist that drifted upward and vanished. Behind it was another passage, narrower than the one they had walked before. The golden light here was dimmer, but warmer, almost like sunlight through leaves. They stepped through, and the mist behind them closed, leaving the chamber empty once more. This new passage felt different. The air was not as still. A faint hum came from somewhere ahead, a low tone that seemed to match the rhythm of their footsteps. The walls were smoother here, without markings, as if they had been polished by many hands. As they walked, they came to a set of tall pillars carved from a pale stone. Each pillar was shaped like a figure, but not of any single species. One had the long limbs of Varen's kind, another had the broad chest of a human, another had the narrow frame of a race Ramai did not know. It was as if the builders had shaped the pillars from the memory of every traveler who had ever come to this place. Ramai slowed to look at them. He felt the same pull he had felt from the pattern on the moon's surface. The figures seemed to be guiding them forward. When he stepped between two of them, the hum grew louder. Beyond the pillars, the passage widened again into a circular hall. At the far side of the hall was a structure unlike anything they had seen so far. It was a frame of silver arches, twisting and bending in ways that seemed impossible. Within the frame shimmered a surface like liquid glass. The hum came from this surface, rising and falling as if it were breathing. The crew stopped at the edge of the hall. Varen warned them not to touch the frame, but Ramai was already moving forward. The liquid glass seemed to draw him in. When he came close, he could see faint shapes moving within it. They were not clear enough to name, but they gave the feeling of something far away in space or time. Then, the glass rippled and formed an image. It was the surface of the moon, but not as it was now. It was green and bright, with rivers and forests and skies full of light. Strange flying shapes moved in the air. Ramai realized the glass was showing the moon as it had been in the past. The image shifted. Now the moon was dark, broken, empty. Then it shifted again, showing a place Ramai had never seen before, a city of towers floating above a sea of clouds. The hum deepened, and he felt his heartbeat matching it. One of the crew called out in fear. The silver arches began to shine brighter. The air in the hall grew warm. Ramai turned to Varen and said the frame was a gate, though he did not know how he knew this. Varen asked the gate to where. Ramai could not answer. The hum stopped suddenly. The liquid glass turned still and dark. The hall felt colder. Then a voice spoke, not from the air, but from within Ramai's mind. It was calm and deep, and it spoke. Words he understood without hearing them. The path will open when the heart is ready. Ramai stood still. He felt the meaning more than the words. The gate would not open by force or by skill. It would open for someone who had the will to face what lay beyond. The voice faded. The hum returned, soft and steady. The liquid glass began to glow again, but now it showed only a gentle light, like dawn. Varen said they should turn back and rest before moving on. But Ramai knew that whatever lay beyond the gate was part of why the tomb had called to him. He also knew that the tomb itself was choosing the path, and they were only guests here. As they left the hall, Ramai looked once more at the silver arches. They stood still, waiting, patient as the stones around them. The tomb had been silent for ages, but now it had begun to wake. The crew rested in the circular hall for some time. The silver arches stood in silence while the liquid glass shimmered faintly. Ramai sat near the wall, his eyes fixed on the gate. The voice he had heard still echoed in his mind. The path will open when the heart is ready. Open when the heart is ready. He could not forget it. When they began moving again, the tomb guided them without any signposts or maps. The narrow passage behind the hall opened into a vast corridor that seemed to stretch into infinity. Its floor was smooth like glass but felt warm under their boots. The walls rose high on either side and curved gently inward toward the ceiling. They shone with a pale gold light that came from no clear source. This was no simple hallway. The walls held faint shapes that seemed to move when no one was looking. Sometimes they looked like waves on water. Other times they seemed to be the shadows of great trees swaying in wind. Rami could not decide if the shapes were real or only in the mind. The aliens in the crew became uneasy. One said the air felt thick, as if they were walking underwater. Another said the hall was bending space, making the distance ahead endless. Varen ordered them to keep moving in a steady line, but it felt as if they were not getting closer to anything. Then Rami noticed something. The shapes on the walls were not random. They were patterns, repeating slowly, like words written in a language too large for the mind to read at once. He began walking closer to one wall, running his hand along it. The surface was not perfectly smooth. It had very shallow grooves, as if it had been carved with incredible precision. The moment his fingers traced one of the grooves, the gold light brightened and the air grew lighter. The floor beneath them hummed softly. The others looked around in surprise. It was as if the hall had woken up. They walked on, and the changes in the air became stronger. The walls now showed clearer images: mountains, rivers, skies filled with two suns. Then the images changed to vast cities, their shapes unlike anything the crew had seen. Towering spires, bridges of light, and great machines moving without wheels or wings. Rami realized they were seeing the memories of the tomb. It was showing them the worlds it had known, perhaps even the worlds that had built it. He felt honored, yet also small. The corridor widened without warning, opening into a space so large they could not see the far wall. This new hall had no ceiling in sight. It rose into darkness, and from above came a slow drifting of pale lights, like stars floating inside the tomb. They moved gently, forming patterns before fading away. In the center of the hall stood a line of tall stone columns. Each column was carved with deep grooves spiraling upward. Between the columns were flat slabs of stone, and on each slab rested a round object. Some were made of crystal, others of metal, and some looked like they had been shaped from a single drop of water frozen in time. Rami stepped toward the nearest one. The object on it was a sphere of dark glass. As he leaned closer, an image formed inside the sphere. It showed a field of blue grass under a green sky. A wind passed over the grass, making waves of color. Rami could almost feel the breeze on his face. Varen warned him not to touch it. Rami obeyed, but the sphere continued to show new images. A waterfall of white fire, a valley filled with silver trees, a night sky with moons stacked above one another like lanterns. It was as if the sphere was a window to places beyond their reach. Each column seemed to hold such a sphere. Some showed beautiful places, others showed ruins and deserts. One sphere showed a world breaking apart in silence, its pieces drifting into the dark. Rami turned away from that one quickly. The crew moved through the hall in awe, each member drawn to different spheres. But Rami noticed something strange. The further they went, the more the spheres seemed to change when he came near. It was as if they recognized him. Worlds that had been empty now showed signs of life. Ruins became whole again in the images. It was subtle, but enough to make him wonder. At the far end of the hall, a new doorway waited. Unlike the others, it had no frame or arch. It was simply an opening in the air, shaped like a tall oval. Beyond it, Rami could see another corridor, but the space inside the oval shimmered like heat rising from sand. Varen approached the opening cautiously. He tossed a small sensor through it. The sensor vanished without a sound. Its signal did not return. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Rami stepped closer. The shimmer inside the oval grew calmer, almost still, as he approached. He felt no fear. The tomb seemed to be leading them here. He looked at Viren, who hesitated, then nodded. They stepped through together. For a heartbeat, there was nothing, no floor, no air, no sense of direction. Then the ground returned beneath their feet, and they stood in another corridor. This one was narrower, but it was filled with a new kind of light. The walls glowed with a deep blue radiance, and faint lines of silver ran along the floor. The air here felt alive. It carried a quiet vibration that seemed to move through their bones. Ahead, the corridor curved for the first time since they had entered the tomb. As they followed it, the blue light grew stronger. Finally, they reached a chamber shaped like a perfect circle. In the center was a pool of still water, its surface as smooth as glass. The water reflected the blue glow from the walls, but also something else, shapes that did not exist in the room itself. Raymai knelt beside the pool. In its reflection, he saw the silver arches from before, but now they were open, revealing a bright path into a place of green hills and golden skies. Then the image changed, showing a storm of black clouds over a sea of fire. The pool did not seem to choose one vision. It showed both and many others. Raymai understood without being told. This was a place of choices. The tomb was showing him not one path, but all the paths that could be. The crew watched in silence. Even Varen seemed unsure of what they were meant to do. But Raymai felt the same pull he had felt since the moment they landed. The tomb was guiding them towards something greater, something it had guarded for longer than anyone could imagine. The blue light shimmered across the water, and the air grew still. Somewhere ahead, deeper in the tomb, another trial waited. And Raymai knew the endless hall had only been the beginning. The blue light from the pool faded as Raymai stood. The images in the water rippled once and then vanished, leaving only his reflection. The silence in the circular chamber felt heavier than before, as if the tomb was waiting for him to take the next step. Viren signaled for the crew to regroup. The aliens kept their distance from the pool, their eyes avoiding its surface. Some whispered to each other, saying the water was alive or that it could pull a person into another world. Raymai listened but said nothing. There was only one way forward. A narrow archway had opened in the wall while they were looking into the pool. It had not been there before. Raymai moved toward it without hesitation. Varen hesitated, but in the end, he followed, and the rest of the crew came behind them. The passage beyond the archway was different from the others they had walked. The walls here were clear crystal, and a soft light shone through them from somewhere deep within. The floor was smooth white stone, warm under their boots. The air was faintly scented with something like rain on dry earth. They walked for a long time until the passage opened into a great chamber. The ceiling rose far above them, covered in points of light that looked like a sky full of stars. At the center of the chamber stood a tall figure made entirely of crystal. Its surface caught the light and sent it scattering across the walls, in colors that shifted slowly, like the movement of the sea. The figure did not move, yet it gave the strong impression of being alive. It stood on a raised platform, hands resting at its sides, head tilted slightly forward. Raymai felt its gaze, even though it had no eyes. The crew froze. No one spoke. The air carried a quiet vibration, like the first note of a song that had not yet begun. Then, without the figure moving its mouth, a voice filled the chamber. It was not loud, but it was clear and calm, and it spoke directly into their minds. "You have come where few have dared to walk." Raymai felt the words settle in his thoughts, as if they had always been there. The figure's voice carried no threat, but it held a weight that could not be ignored. Varen stepped forward and asked who it was. The figure's head tilted slightly toward him. "I am the keeper of this place," the voice said. "I guard the vault that lies at the heart of the tomb." It is older than your worlds and older than your stars. It was placed here to keep safe, that which should not be used. The chamber seemed to grow colder at those words. Ramai asked what the vault held. The keeper's light shifted to a deep shade of gold dot. It holds the seed of time, the voice answered, a creation from those who walked before all others. With it, one could stretch the thread of time, twist it, or mend it. It can raise what has fallen. It can unmake what should never have been. The crew stirred uneasily. They knew of weapons that could destroy cities, of machines that could move planets, but nothing that could touch time itself. The keeper's voice grew softer. Many have come seeking it, the voice said. None have returned. They were turned away. For the seed cannot be touched by hands of greed or fear. Only one who walks with purpose, unshaken, and heart unbound can reach it. This place tests such a one. The figure's head turned slowly toward Ramai. The golden light deepened. The tomb has chosen you to walk the path. Ramai felt a shock at the words, though deep inside he had expected them. Since stepping on the moon's surface, the place had responded to him in ways it had not to the others. Doors had opened, lights had shifted, and images had changed when he came near. Varen began to speak, but the keeper's voice passed over him and into Ramai's thoughts. Alone, the path ahead is not of strength or skill. It is of the heart. You will be shown what you desire most and what you fear most. You will be asked to choose when choice is not easy. If you fail, the tomb will close forever behind you. Ramai asked what would happen if he passed the trials. Then, you will stand before the seed, the voice replied, and you must decide what is to be done with it. That decision will shape more than your own life. It will shape the course of all who walk under the light of stars. The figure's color shifted again, this time to a pale blue dot. Go now. The first trial wakes. The floor of the chamber trembled gently. At the far side, a section of wall split open to reveal another passage. This one was dark, its edges faintly glowing with a silver outline. Varen tried to step forward, but the keeper's voice spoke to him. Only the chosen may pass. The others will remain here until the choice is made. The crew protested. At the moment Ramim stepped toward the opening, an invisible barrier rose between him and them. The keeper did not move, but its presence filled the room like a tide rising. Around a small island, Ramai turned to look at his crewmates. Varen's expression was tense but steady. The others stood silent, unsure if they should wish him luck or urge him to turn back. He stepped through the silver-edged opening. The barrier closed behind him, leaving the crew alone with the crystal figure. The passage ahead was narrow, with walls so dark they seemed to drink in the light. The floor sloped gently downward. Ramai could hear nothing but his own footsteps and the faint sound of his breathing. After a short walk, the air changed. It felt warmer, softer, and a golden glow began to appear ahead. He stepped into a small chamber with no doors except the one he had entered. At the center of the chamber was a single pedestal. On the pedestal rested an object that looked like a simple wooden box. The surface was smooth, the color rich and deep. There was nothing threatening about it. Yet as Ramai approached, he felt a strange pull in his chest. The box seemed to whisper. Without sound, it promised safety, peace, and answers to questions he had carried his whole life. It told him he could take it, and with it, he would be able to protect everyone he cared about from harm, forever. Ramai closed his eyes. He understood. This was the first trial, a test not of strength, but of desire. The box offered him something he had always wanted, yet he did not know if it was true or only a shape made from his own thoughts. The keeper's warning echoed in his mind. You will be shown what you desire most. He stood in silence, the golden glow wrapping around him like warm sunlight. His next choice would decide whether he continued forward or whether the tomb would close around him forever. Rami stood in front of the small wooden box on the pedestal. The golden glow filled the chamber, soft and warm, wrapping around him like sunlight through an open window. He could almost feel the weight of the promise the box carried. It called to him without words, offering safety, peace, and the power to protect those he loved. His hands rose slowly, but he stopped before touching it. The keeper's voice from earlier returned to his mind. You will be shown what you desire most. He thought of his childhood, of the people he had lost along the way. He thought of the dangers he had faced among the stars, the moments when he had wished for just a little more strength to keep everyone safe. The box seemed to know all of this. It seemed to shape itself from his thoughts, but a deeper voice inside him whispered a warning. If this was the first trial, then the tomb was watching him. It was not offering a gift, but setting a question. Would he take something that gave him control, even if he did not understand it? Ramai stepped back. The glow dimmed slightly, as if the chamber itself was surprised, but he turned away from the pedestal. I came here to find the truth, not to take shortcuts, he said quietly to the empty room. The moment he spoke, the glow shifted from gold to silver. The box vanished as if it had never been there. The pedestal sank into the floor, and the far wall opened like a curtain being drawn aside. Ramai stepped forward into a new passage. This one sloped upward, and the air grew cooler. The walls glowed faintly with a pale blue light, leading him into a much larger space. He entered a chamber so vast it took his breath away. The ceiling rose high above, disappearing into shadow. The floor stretched out in all directions, dotted with countless tall columns. Between the columns hung sheets of shimmering light, each one swaying gently as if moved by an unseen breeze. Ramai approached the nearest sheet. As he drew closer, an image formed within it. At first it was blurry, then it cleared into a scene of a great city beside a silver sea. Tall towers reached into a sky lit by two suns. Crowds of people moved through streets lined with green trees. Their faces were strange, not human, but filled with joy and life. Ramai realized he was not looking at a painting or recording. The scene moved and breathed as if he were standing just beyond an invisible wall. He could hear faint voices, laughter, and the sound of waves against the shore. Then, without warning, the image shifted. The city was in ruins. The towers were broken, the sky dark with clouds. The silver sea had turned black, and no voices could be heard. Only silence remained. Ramai stepped back, shaken. He moved to another sheet of light. This one showed a world of vast forests, with trees taller than mountains. Strange winged creatures glided between the branches. The air shimmered with colors he could not name. The scene was peaceful and full of life. But like the first, it shifted. The forests were gone, replaced by empty plains of ash. The winged creatures had vanished. Every sheet of light told the same story: beauty and life, followed by ruin and silence. Each one seemed to be a memory of a world that had once existed but was now gone. Ramai walked deeper into the chamber. The farther he went, the older the scene seemed. The cities became simpler, the creatures more alien, the sky stranger. Some worlds had 3 suns, others no sun at all, glowing only from rivers of light that ran through their ground. Yet, all ended the same way. With Lost Dot, it was not destruction in anger or war that Ramai saw. It was the slow fading of life, as if time itself had passed and taken everything with it. At the center of the chamber stood a single great pillar, taller than any of the others. Upon it rested a sphere of pure crystal, glowing faintly. As Ramai approached, the surface of the sphere lit up with images far sharper than the sheets of light. This was no single memory. It was many, all woven together. He saw a vast council of beings, some like humans, others like nothing he had ever imagined. They spoke without words, their thoughts passing between them like streams of light. In the center of their gathering was a small object, the seed of time, Remai realized these were the ones who had created the tomb. They had not built it as a prison, but as a safeguard. They had seen worlds rise and fall, and they had understood the danger of letting time be bent by unworthy hands. The seed had the power to undo the end of any world, to erase mistakes, but it could also trap life in endless loops or unmake it entirely. The creators had chosen to hide it, placing it where only one with the right heart could reach it. The crystal sphere pulsed with light, and Remai felt a question settle in his mind. If you could bring back what was lost, would you? He thought of the people he had seen in the memories, happy lives, beautiful worlds, all gone. He thought of his own life, the moments when he had wished to turn back time. The answer rose quickly in him, but so did the doubt. If he changed one thing, what would happen to everything else? The sphere's glow dimmed. The question faded, leaving him with a deep sense of sadness. He understood now that the tomb was not testing his desire to save, but his understanding of the cost. The air in the chamber shifted, and a pathway opened between the columns. At its far end was another archway, this one filled with a swirling silver mist. Remai knew without being told that this led to the next trial. He took one last look at the countless sheets of light. Each one was a life, a place, a history that had once been real. The chamber felt like a living archive, holding the memories of the universe itself. As he stepped toward the mist, he felt the weight of those memories settle on his shoulders. The seed of time was not just a relic. It was a choice that could change everything. For better or worse. The mist swallowed him, and the chamber of memories was gone. The silver mist curled around Remai as he stepped forward. It was cool against his skin and carried no scent, and it felt alive, as if it were moving with purpose. His footsteps made no sound. There was no sense of direction, only the shifting, endless mist. After what felt like minutes or hours, the ground beneath him changed. It was no longer the smooth stone of the tomb, but soft grass under his boots. The mist began to thin, and shapes appeared ahead. When the mist cleared fully, Remy found himself standing on a hill. The sky was bright with a warm golden light. Below the hill stretched a valley filled with green fields, forests, and a wide river shining in the sunlight. Birds wheeled through the air. The wind carried the smell of flowers and the sound of distant laughter. For a moment, he forgot where he was. It felt real, too real to be an illusion. Then he saw them. People were walking toward him from the valley. Some he recognized from his own life, faces from his childhood, friends he had not seen in years, and even those he had lost forever. They smiled and waved to him. One figure stepped ahead of the rest. It was his mother, just as he remembered her when he was young. She smiled and held out her hand. "You can come home now," she said softly. Everything can be as it was. Remai's heart ached. He had wished for this more times than he could count, to see them again, to be free from loss. He took a step forward before stopping himself. This was the trial. He knew it now. The tomb was offering him his deepest desire, just as the keeper had warned. It was not a gift. It was a test to see if he could walk away from what he wanted most. His mother's voice was gentle. "All you have to do is take my hand. You can stay here. The tomb will keep you safe. You will never lose anything again." The valley below seemed to shine brighter, the laughter growing louder. It felt like a dream he did not want to wake from. But another voice spoke in his mind, his own voice. "If you stay here, the seed will remain hidden forever. The journey will end, and the choice will be left to someone else." Remai closed his eyes. He thought of the chamber of memories, of the countless worlds that had risen and fallen. The seed of time was more than his personal longing. It was about the future of all life. When he opened his eyes, the faces before him were still smiling. His mother's hand was still outstretched. But now he noticed something strange. Her shadow on the grass was faint, as if fading. He shook his head. "I can't," he said quietly. "I want to more than anything, but I can't." The wind stilled. The golden light dimmed. The people began to fade, their smiles never changing. His mother's voice was soft as the mist returned, wrapping around them. "Then go, my son. The path is yours." The hill vanished. The grass was gone. Ramai stood once more on the smooth stone of the tomb. Ahead, a new chamber waited. It was smaller than the others, with walls of deep black stone that seemed to drink in the light. In the center stood another pedestal, but this one held nothing. The keeper's voice filled the air, calm and steady. "You have turned from the comfort of illusion. You have refused to bind yourself to desire. Now you will face what you fear most." The pedestal vanished. The walls began to change, forming shapes and shadows. The floor under his boots cracked, and the air grew hot. He was standing on a barren plain. The sky above was filled with thick black clouds. Flames burned in the distance, and the air was heavy with ash. No rivers, no trees, no life. From the shadows came figures. At first, they were strangers, but as they came closer, he saw they were the same people from before, his friends, his family, his crew. But now they were silent, their faces empty, their eyes dull. They reached toward him, not in welcome, but in need. A voice rose from the wind, low and sharp. "You cannot save them. You will fail, and everything will end." The plain stretched endlessly. No matter where he looked, there was no escape. The fear pressed down on him. It was not the fear of dying, but the fear of being powerless. He thought of all the times he had stood by, unable to stop loss. He thought of what might happen if he failed the tomb's trials and left the seed to fall into the wrong hands. The voice in the wind grew louder. "This is what awaits if you continue. Turn back now and save yourself." Ramai closed his eyes. Again, he felt the heat of the flames, the weight of the ash. He heard the silent cries of those he loved. And yet, deep within, a single thought rose above the fear. "Even if I fail, I must try." To turn back is to give up before the fight begins. When he opened his eyes, the plain was still there, but he felt lighter. He took a step forward. The ground did not break. The flames did not rise. The figures faded like smoke. The clouds above began to break apart, and through them came a single beam of silver light. The barren plain dissolved, replaced by the black stone walls of the chamber. The keeper's voice returned, warmer now. "You have faced desire and turned it aside. You have faced fear and walked through it. The final path lies ahead. The seed awaits your choice." The far wall of the chamber slid open, revealing a staircase that descended into a soft white glow. Ramai took a deep breath and began to walk down. Each step felt heavier, not from the weight of the tomb, but from the knowledge that his next decision would shape more than his own fate. As he disappeared into the glow, the door closed silently. Behind him, the trial of the heart was complete. The choice was now his alone. The staircase curved downward in a slow spiral, each step glowing faintly under Ramai's boots. The walls around him were smooth and white, with no markings, no carvings, nothing to tell him how long this passage had been here. It felt like walking into the heart of a star dot at the bottom. The passage opened into a vast round chamber. The ceiling was lost in shadow, but the floor was a single sheet of polished stone. So smooth, it reflected the soft white light that seemed to come from nowhere. In the center of the chamber stood a pedestal. Upon it rested a crystal sphere, larger than his head, glowing gently. Inside the sphere, a single point of golden light pulsed like the heartbeat of some great living thing. Ramai stepped closer. The air was still, almost heavy, as if the chamber were holding its breath. The golden light within the sphere seemed to watch him, though it had no eyes. This was the seed of time, the power to bring back what was lost, the power to unmake mistakes and shape history. The keeper's voice spoke, not from the air around him this time, but from within his mind. The trials are over. You have faced desire and fear. Now you must choose. Ramai's hands tightened into fists. He thought of the chamber of memories, of all those worlds that had lived and died. He thought of the illusions that had tried to keep him in the past. And he thought of the barren plain, where his fear had whispered for him to turn away. He reached out and placed his hands on the crystal sphere. It was cool to the touch, but inside he felt a deep warmth, like sunlight through his skin. Images flooded his mind. Cities restored, oceans made clean, forests reborn, lives saved from loss. The seed showed him everything it could give. Then came other images, timelines twisting, worlds trapped in endless loops, people living the same days again and again without knowing why. He saw moments changed, only to bring worse endings than before. The seed showed him what could happen if it was used without care. You can turn back the end of any world, the keeper's voice said, but every choice has a cost. You may save one, but others may fall. You may save many, but you may unmake the present, you know. The seed is not only creation, it is also the weight of the choice you carry. Ramai stood still, his hands on the sphere, his heart heavy. He could think of 100 things he wanted to fix, but he also knew that time moved forward for a reason. Every mistake, every loss, every victory shaped what came after. For a long moment, he closed his eyes and breathed. Then he spoke softly. This belongs to no one, not even me. It is too much power for one mind, one heart. The golden light within the seed pulsed once, brighter than before. Then, what will you do, Ramai of Earth? He lifted his hand from the sphere and stepped back. I will not use it, but I will not leave it here for someone else to take and misuse. If it must remain hidden, then I will be its guardian. The keeper's voice was quiet now, almost like a whisper of the wind. You would give your life to watch over it? Yes, Ramai said without hesitation. If the seed is safe, the future will be decided by the living, not by the past. The light in the chamber shifted. The pedestal began to sink into the floor, carrying the seed down with it. Ramai felt the ground beneath his feet tremble. The walls of the chamber began to glow with threads of gold, forming patterns like constellations. When the seed was gone from sight, the keeper spoke again. Then the tomb will remember your choice. From this moment, you are its protector. You will walk among the stars, and the tomb will walk with you. Its doors will open only for your return. A beam of silver light fell from the shadowed ceiling, wrapping around Ramai. The air shimmered, and the chamber began to fade. He found himself standing outside, on the surface of the forgotten world. The stars above were brighter than he had ever seen them. The air was still, the ruins around him silent. Yet he felt the tomb beneath his feet, deep and alive, hidden from all but him. For a while he stood there, listening to the quiet. He thought of the path that had brought him here, the golden box, the memories of lost worlds, the illusions of those he loved, the plane of fear, and finally the seed itself. He knew he could return to his ship now. He could go back to the life he had before, but he also knew that his life had changed. Somewhere, far beneath the surface, a power waited, a power he had chosen not to use, but to protect. Ramai turned his eyes to the stars. Somewhere out there, worlds still lived and died. He could not save them all, but he could keep the seed from falling into hands that would twist time for selfish gain. As he began walking back toward the valley where his ship rested, the wind carried a faint sound behind him, like a distant heartbeat, steady and strong. It was the tomb, still alive, still remembering. The keeper's final words echoed in his mind. The greatest strength is not in changing time, but in facing it. And so Ramai walked on, a single human among countless stars, carrying a secret that could reshape the universe and choosing every day not to use it.